Not every star that ever exploded onto the WWE stage had the advantage of being equipped with a ready-made gimmick which fans immediately responded well to. Even if they did, that wasn't a guarantee that they would stay over forever, and sometimes a once adored character could eventually become stale after a while. Without an inspired shift in character, you could argue that we may never have been able to rejoice at the sight of the man or readied ourselves to play the game. WWE sometimes only have themselves to blame for the derailing of one of their own characters, but it's only fair to highlight those instances where a seemingly condemned talent have been rescued by the introduction of a much-needed gimmick or attitude alteration. I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 times WWE salvaged a doomed superstar. Number 10. Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch had been quietly establishing herself as one of the true crowd favourites over on the SmackDown Live brand ever since the 2016 brand split. Yet, despite this obvious popularity, Lynch still never seemed to find herself in the kind of positions afforded to WWE's other talented women. She could wrestle, had a great look, and definitely had the makings of something quite special. But she lacked one vital component needed in order to get yourself over as a real star in the eyes of the boss: attitude. This is attitude, right? So when all appeared to be lost and Lynch's forever doomed character looked set to be overshadowed once again by Charlotte Flair at the biggest party of the summer, she showed her true colours and laid a beating down on the Queen in front of a delighted live audience. Regardless of the fact that the plan was for Lynch to turn heel after the attack, a once hapless talent became one of the biggest names in all of wrestling thanks to her convincing shift of gears from smiley goof to no-nonsense badass. Number 9. Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins has had the backing of the Authority, reigned as a deliciously vile WWE champion for a while, and even garnered the support of the fans in his pursuit of Brock Lesnar's Universal Championship. Yet Rollins managed to lose all of that supportive momentum when he eventually regained his big red belt in the summer of 2019 and became an arrogant, Twitter-obsessed shell of the performer we'd rooted for in the build-up to this crowning achievement. Then things got really ugly when Rollins was thrown into a feud with Bray Wyatt's The Fiend, and it became agonizingly clear just how much fans wanted to see the apparent heel take the babyface champion down a peg or two. Which he did. Rollins' doomed babyface run is now dead and buried, and it looks as though his new dastardly partnership with the AOP, off the back of calling out the Raw roster after Survivor Series, has salvaged a character which had threatened to become unwatchable just a few months earlier. Number 8. Kevin Owens. Somewhere between his lukewarm Universal title run in 2016 and his poorly received feud with Braun Strowman in 2018, Kevin Owens stopped feeling like the unorthodox main event talent that he threatened to be upon his arrival onto the main roster. This eventually led to Owens feeling like a limp afterthought right around the time he was shelved due to substantial injuries to both of his knees. Yet these injuries acted as a bit of a blessing in disguise as Owens returned to the company in 2019 with a spring in his step. Yeah. After a weird initial period of him flirting between face and heel, he finally found his calling as the anti-establishment voice of the fans, and was given a platform to let rip on the company's insistent pushing of the likes of Shane McMahon, instead of the rich catalogue of talented performers nudged to the sidelines. It worked a treat, with Owens now feeling like a fresh commodity in the company again, and his current feud with Seth Rollins further cementing him as the straight-talking anti-hero that fans are clearly responding to. Number 7. Daniel Bryan. If someone was to tell you a few years ago that the recently retired Daniel Bryan would eventually make a triumphant return to WWE as an active performer, you probably would have just been happy to see him jumping around the place going, yes, for the rest of his time. I'm way too excited about this. Yet in 2018, that's sort of what we got, and well, it felt a bit dead. That being said, you still couldn't imagine Vince McMahon ever being willing to kill off such a lucrative character in the form of the fan-friendly Bryan. Until he did, or more so until Bryan convinced him to. Sensing he needed that all-important attitude change in order to make himself feel relevant again, Bryan leaned into his real-life commitment to saving the planet and turned on the capitalistic fans in attendance. The change-up was inspired and helped salvage a stale character which looked to have peaked in the company. Number 6. Booker T. Around the mid-2000s, fans had stopped digging Booker T as a serious main event talent. Despite teasing a potential run with the Gold in his feud with JBL for the WWE title in 2004, Booker still found himself lacking a world title victory in quite some time, and fans started to treat him as yet another star doomed to be a perennial bridesmaid in the company. That was until he decided to enter the 2006 King of the Ring and only went and won the whole bloody thing. Newly christened as King Booker, the gloriously campy gimmick of the stereotypical English king, accompanied by terrible British accent, elevated him back to the level of seriously entertaining main event talent, and before long he was holding the World Heavyweight Championship high as WWE's 8th Grand Slam champion. Number 5. Batista. In 2002, long before he was the Animal or the funniest member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Dave Batista was taking his first steps as an on-screen performer for WWE. Built like a very literal mountain of muscle, surely WWE would just choose to throw him straight into the spotlight with a badass gimmick and an indomitable run through some of the roster's most unfortunate mid-carders. Well, not exactly. Instead, WWE introduced him as Deacon Batista, the villainous enforcer of Reverend Devon. Donning a sleeveless suit and cash box chained around his neck, it was fair to assume that this version of the hulking star would not be main eventing WrestleMania anytime soon. So WWE smartly opted to drop the Deacon and moved him over to Raw to partner Ric Flair, before Big Dave was eventually recruited as new blood for an impending stable by the name of Evolution. The decision proved to be a shrewd one, as Batista went on to hone his craft under the tutelage of some of the greatest stars ever to play the game. And before long, he found himself staring down his former mentor, Triple H, in the main event of WrestleMania 21 for the World Heavyweight Championship. Speaking of which, number 4, Triple H. The Force, which came face to face with the Animal Batista at WrestleMania 21, was very different to the one who wandered onto WWF television in 1995. Dressed in a pompous tailcoat and boasting a self-important attitude to match, not much has changed there, Hunter Hearst Helmsley cut a distinctive, ridiculously heightened figure of a dude who's obsessed with proper etiquette. A change-up was always going to be necessary at some point, so when he and his bodyguard, Chyna, partnered with Shawn Michaels and Rick Rude to form D-Generation X, he found his much-needed second wind as a performer. This change in attitude and direction would eventually lead to him running the faction, before striking out as a single star in his own right and forging one of the greatest legacies in WWE history. Number 3, Bray Wyatt. Being presented as an oddball who spent more time babbling nonsensical verbiage than actually getting the job done in the ring, fans soon lost faith in Bray Wyatt as a main event talent in 2018 and instead chose to invest their energy into other performers on the roster. The former WWE champion had seen his stock fall to the level of middling tag team performer and even lost the Raw tag team titles with partner Woken Matt Hardy to a team which were the embodiment of the word jobber, the B Team. Wyatt would then find himself in the wilderness after Hardy chose to take some time off to recover from injuries. WWE allowed Wyatt to indulge in his obvious creative genius, and in doing so he managed to forge the split personalities of the children's TV host Bray Wyatt and his devilish alter ego, The Fiend. Wyatt re-emerged with this never-before-seen gimmick and hasn't looked back since, confidently becoming the hottest act in the company in 2019 and maintaining much of that momentum in 2020. Number 2, Stone Cold Steve Austin. When Steve Austin first arrived on WWF television and was gifted the $1 Million Championship by his manager Ted DiBiase, he went by the name of the Ringmaster. He was infamously then offered a few new gimmick suggestions in the wake of the death of this vanilla persona, with Otto von Ruthless and Chili McFreeze both setting the tone for the caliber of character Austin was being pitched. Austin would finally take it upon himself to shave his head and grow a goatee before WWE decided to drop the name of Ringmaster completely, in place of his new identity of Stone Cold. And the rest was history. His badass, beer-drinking, anti-hero character would go on to be the biggest star in all of wrestling. Number 1, The Rock. Finally, we make it to number 1 on our list, and had WWE not managed to salvage the absolute mess of a character that was Rocky Maivia, perhaps we never would have gotten arguably the biggest movie star on the planet today. This animosity towards the blue chipper hit fever pitch around mid-1997, when fans could be heard chanting "Die, Rocky, die." And that was the moment when McMahon decided a character shift was necessary. After returning from a legitimate knee injury, Rocky would turn on the disapproving fans and start referring to himself in the third person as The Rock. This opened the door for Rock to start riffing off the live crowd, and his arrogant flamboyance became one of the frequent highlights of WWF television. McMahon's brainwave to release Dwayne Johnson's inner attitude proved to be a masterstroke, and his company gave birth to one of the biggest names in all of wrestling and entertainment. And that's our list. Know of any other times WWE salvaged a doomed superstar? Let us know all about them in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I've been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling. I hope you're having the amazing day that you truly, truly deserve. And I'm sure I'm going to see you soon.